welcome to a little box of knitting technique video. We're going to be looking at Fairisle or stranded knitting. This is what we use to create the lovely Ingleborough hot water bottle cover in our very first little box of knitting, and the whistle stop tour in the video is going to give you literally everything that you're going to need to be able to create that project, also stand you in good stead for any other Fairisle or stranded projects you've got your eye on. It is a lovely technique and well worth spending time to explore. So if you've got access to a local yarn shop with courses to learn about it, do give it some thought, because it is a lovely thing to learn and to immerse yourself in, and it opens up a whole world of new patterns and things that you'll be able to enjoy making with some really spectacular results. It's a personal favourite of both Amanda and I, and we would encourage you to not be scared and jump in. It is perfectly achievable, as you'll see in the video going forward. A couple of examples here, just so we can have a very quick chat about it. I've got a cowl that I made here. Now, stranded or colourwork or Fairisle, all it is, it's the method that's used to make patterns and pictures in your knitting, and it is worked generally and usually in the round. I have seen projects working back and forth, but traditionally it's worked in the round. So this is a cowl, you can see it's a joined cowl, and the yarn, you're using two and only two colours at any one time. So if you take this little band here in isolation, for example, you can see the background colour is the creamy colour, and then you've got the kind of mushroomy beige colour which are forming the trees. Both yarns are carried all the way around the work as you work. So if I open the back up like that, you can almost kind of see the reverse pattern, can't you, on the back, the yarns being carried along. I've got another project here. I quite like Fairisle, can you tell? I've got a sock, or I've actually got two of them, but here's one sock made in exactly the same way. And you can see, if I turn it inside out, the yarns being carried along the back of the work. Only two colours being used at any one time. So even this little section here, at first glance, you're like, well, there's three colours in there. But if you work along a row, you can see on that orange row, there's only orange and green on that one row. So it can be quite daunting. When you get right down to it, it really is only two colours being used at any one time on any one row. So it's a little less scary if you look at it like that. So I've got our piece that we've been working on to show you some techniques. I've got that ready to introduce our second colour. Now, there is no avoiding it. Fairisle work is exclusively worked really from charts. I know a lot of us aren't fans of charts, but I think this might be the way that you get over that, because it's so pictorial, this particular method of knitting. The whole point of it is to create a pattern, and you can very, very quickly forget almost about stitch numbers, because you will be working from a pattern. You will know on this row, for example, that the row below has got a pink stitch, so I need to make sure there's one each side of it as well as one above it. So it's a lovely, it will become intuitive and less scary. But let's just have a little look at a chart. Now, this is a practice chart, which I will put a download link for if you want to use it. The repeats of this pattern, i.e. how many stitches the pattern goes over, is 28. So my little sample piece I'm working here has got 28 stitches on each needle. On each needle, let me just repeat that. So the pattern repeat is 28. That means I have to work it twice for each round, because you know that I've got to work this needle and this needle to complete a round. So there's two pattern repeats on this, or one pattern repeat, two in total. I'm going to do one on each needle. Okay, so 56 stitches in total, 28 for each pattern repeat. Any project that you work will tell you how many times to repeat a chart that you've got. Sometimes they're very small, the charts, because they are repeated all the way around. So it doesn't matter if it's a kind of a 5, 3, 7, whatever. If it's a small repeat, it really doesn't matter, because you'll be working it all the way around, and it is perfectly sufficient to have a very small chart. So, because we're working in the round, we're not reversing our work ever, which means we are always working from right to left. So the numbers across the bottom represent the stitch numbers on our needle. So if I look here, I've got stitch 1, 2, 3 and 4. That will go 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so 28 stitches will correspond to the 28 stitches on one needle. The numbers up the side represent round numbers. So once I've worked this pattern twice, that's round 1 complete. I'm then going to move on to round 2 and work that pattern twice, round 3 and so on. So numbers across the bottom are stitches, numbers up the sides are rounds. Now on this pattern I've used the contrast is cream, just to show. You can see those kind of pink diamonds popping out because I've put a contrast colour I've got a cream contrast on this pattern. I'm actually going to use green for that contrast just because it shows up better on the video, and I couldn't put green on here because it made my eyes go funny. So if you're going to practice this, doesn't matter at all what colours you use, just get two yarns which have got a good contrast. So if you look at that, you can see it's very, very easy to see the contrast between the two. Then you're just going to make sure you pick whichever yarn you want to be your contrast, whichever one you want to be your main yarn. Doesn't matter as long as you stick to it. Again, going back to the much bigger scope of Fairisle as a topic, you can go into colour choice and hue and colour values, all sorts of incredible things that you can learn about if you want to make your own designs. It's ever so much fun to make your own designs, because when you get right down to it, obviously we're just using 2 colours per line, so there's a lot you can do with it. There's also some great Fairisle pattern source books which can help you as well. So wonderful subject and well worth spending time with. For today though, we're just going to stick to this very straightforward sample so that I can get you enough knowledge to get your to give you a great result on your project that you're working on. So my main colour on this pattern is going to be the pink. It's fairly obvious, isn't it? It's the one that I'm working with, and the one that I want to pop out, the one that I want to really bring forward, is this contrast colour, and I'm going to call that my dominant colour. So I've just put up on the screen a photograph of a pair of mittens to demonstrate dominant colour. I'm really sorry, I don't know whose photograph this is. If anybody knows, do let me know. It is either the same or very similar to one that was used when I was taught to knit Fairisle, and it demonstrates very, very clearly and beautifully dominant colour, because this pair of mittens was knit with the same yarn and the same pattern, but you can see very clearly that they look very different. The mitten on the left, they have used the blue as the dominant colour. So if you look particularly at the stripes on the thumb, you can see very clearly the blue hits you first. Perhaps the pattern isn't quite so obvious if you look across at the mitten on the right. That is more what I'm trying to achieve with my little practice piece here. Can you see how the cream really pops forward and makes a very, very bold and straightforward and in your face, if you like, kind of crisscross trellis type pattern. Also, again, have a look at the stripes on that thumb. Very clear that the cream there is the dominant colour. So when we're working our project, I want my sort of trellis work to pop forward like we saw on that right hand mitten there. So I'm going to make that that contrast colour, that's going to be my dominant colour. So in this case, that's going to be the green. Just want you to remember that, because I'm going to show you how you need to hold that yarn to make sure that you maintain that bold popping forward kind of pattern. Also, a quick note here, you will note in the Ingleborough hot water bottle cover pattern that the dominant colour is actually changed partway through the pattern. And the reason for that is, this is actually a prototype, the finished the finished kind of splatter placement is slightly different. But the reason for that is we're starting with the turmeric colour at the bottom and the contrast colour, this blue. We really want that to pop forward. But as we get up and the blue becomes the more prevalent colour, we want the turmeric to pop forward. So around this area here, and it's in your pattern, we swap from the blue being the dominant colour to the turmeric being the dominant colour. So just bear that in mind when you're actually working your Ingleborough hot water bottle cover.
And at this point, let's take a break. We've learnt a lot so far, and in the next video, we're actually going to start knitting.